Hello and welcome to Torah portion Shmini. Now, you might recognize the thumbnail that I'm going to use from a few years ago. Actually, the Torah portion when I did Shmini when we were in lockdown. I want to cover what I covered in that again because I think it's such valuable information for the body to operate as the body is supposed to according to scripture, but the sound wasn't very good. It was recorded in our bedroom at home, and the setup wasn't perfect. And I know that sound is such an important dimension to the teachings that if the sound's not good, there are a huge number of people who will not bear with the information to find out what has been said, because some people are just a lot more sensitive to sound than others. Some people are just really into the information, and some people are really into just the whole thing sounding of good quality, which is fair enough. Makes me think of when I was a rapper. I would focus when I listened to hip hop on the lyrics, and it really didn't matter so much the beat and the production of the song, as long as I could listen to the lyrics and I enjoyed what was being said. That was where my focus was. But I know that there are a whole load of people for whom the sound is important. So I want to cover that information again because it is so important that we operate as a body as Scripture tells us to. I've spoken recently about people's tendency to not really want to have a teacher or a pastor or any kind of leadership. And that's not good, because that's not how Yehovah has established things, and obviously the way that he has established things is the best way for it to be. So if we can learn how he wants us to be as a body and the different roles within the body, then we can come to a better understanding of him. And I get the whole not appreciating any kind of authority thing. I know that Yehovah has set our leaders over us, and the vast majority of the time, I find myself in opposition to the way that they would have things done. So I understand where it comes from. I don't think that it's unreasonable, but I also acknowledge that that's how he does things. So that must be how it is best to do them. So if we start the Torah portion, first of all, what I want to look at is what the name of the Torah portion alludes to. Shmini means eighth, and in my past couple of Torah portions, we've covered Exodus 29, Exodus 40, which are both instructions about this day, and now this day has come around in the retelling of the narrative that we have in Torah. So it's on the eighth day. On the first day, Moshe was to set up the tabernacle, and then on the eighth day, these events were to happen. So let's get into it. Okay, Leviticus 8 and Leviticus 9 have covered this. So I'll start in Leviticus 8. It says, "And Yehovah spoke to Moshe, saying, Take Aaron and his sons with him, and the garments, and the anointing oil, and the bull of the sin offering, and the 2 rams, and the basket of unleavened bread, and assemble the congregation at the door of the tent of meeting. And Moshe did as Yehovah commanded him, and the congregation was assembled at the door of the tent of meeting." So let's again recognize that it's Moshe who is doing these things, and what he's going to do is he's going to anoint Aaron and his sons and set them apart so that they are able to serve as priests. But at this moment, there are no priests, and it is Moshe who is using the anointing oil and slaughtering the bull at the sin offering, the 2 rams for the burnt offering. It's Moshe that's doing it. And he assembles the congregation at the door of the tent of meeting. And Moshe said to the congregation, "This is the word Yehovah commanded to be done." So Moshe brought Aaron and his sons and washed them with water. And I'm sure that Charlie covered that word last week, karav, meaning to draw near. Currently, where I am, temporally, if you like, it is the Tuesday before Charlie does Torah portion Ki Tisa. I'm a little bit ahead on the Torah portions. This one is a particularly easy one to prepare as well, because I already had the majority of this prepared from a couple of years ago. All I'm doing now is covering it again, so that the sound is good. But he carved with Aaron and his son, so he drew near. He's drawing near to Yehovah. The door of the tent of meeting we see throughout Scripture as a place where people draw near to Yehovah. But Moshe here draws near, as it says in verse 6. Moshe brought, did he bring? No, he carved. He drew near with Aaron and his sons, and he washed them with water. And of course, we looked in Torah portion Tetzaveh at how we as priests are washed, how our consciences are cleansed, how our spirit is immersed. We looked at in Vayakahel and Pekudai. But here we see the actual physical priest, the high priest, and his sons who would serve as priests. We're going to see Aaron's sons bringing blood to him, the blood of the animals that they have slaughtered. They bring him the blood, and he sprinkles the various parts of the tabernacle and the altar with the blood. But here, Moshe is preparing them so that they can do these things. And as I say, he is the one that is offering the sin offering. He's the one that's offering the 2 rams as the burnt offering, or as the rams of ordination, as they actually are, which I've looked at in previous years as potentially animals which were kind of, if you like, the covenant sacrifice. The priesthood had been given to Aaron and his sons as an everlasting covenant. And where a covenant is established, the animals that are the covenant offering have to be sacrificed at the time in order to establish a covenant. So I actually think that these rams, called the rams of ordination, but I actually think it's to do with entering into a covenant. Verse 7 says, "And put the long shirt on him, and girded him with the girdle, and dressed him in the robe, and put the shoulder garment on him, and girded him with the embroidered band of the shoulder garment, and tied with it the shoulder garment on him. And put the breastplate on him, and put the Urim and the Thummim in the breastplate, and put the turban on his head, and on the turban on its front he put the golden plate, the set-apart sign of dedication, and sign of separation, as Yehovah had commanded Moshe." And in verse 30 of Leviticus 8 we saw, "And Moshe took some of the anointing oil and some of the blood which was on the altar, and sprinkled it on Aaron, on his garments, on his sons, and on the garments of his sons with him. And he set apart Aaron, his garments, and his sons, and the garments of his sons with him." And we saw in Torah portion Tetzaveh, how we are to be adorned, how we are to be clothed, that we are to be clothed, as it says here, in set apart garments, in things like righteousness. That's how we are to be clothed before Yehovah. He takes the shame and the guilt which clothed us previously. He cleanses our consciences, he cleanses our spirits, so that we can serve before him as priests. In Leviticus 8:33 it says, "Do not go outside the door of the tent of meeting for 7 days until the days of your ordination are completed, for he fills your hand for 7 days." Okay, so all of this is happening on the first day when Moshe was commanded to do all these things, and he says, okay, the days of your ordination are 7 days, which is going to take us to the 8th day. Yehovah has commanded to do, as he has done this day, to make atonement for you. And stay at the door of the tent of meeting day and night for 7 days, and you shall guard the duty of Yehovah and not die, for so I have been commanded. And Aaron and his sons did all the words that Yehovah commanded by the hand of Moshe. So here we're told that it's to make atonement for them. Atonement, as we'll probably be looking at next week. Charlie will do Torah portions Tazria and Mithraim. Then I will do Torah portion Achrei Mot. And in Achrei Mot we will look at the topic of atonement. But in a nutshell, atonement is a sort of cleansing. So they have to be cleansed because they're going to appear in the presence of Yehovah. In Leviticus 9, the beginning of our Torah portion, verse 1, it says, "And on the 8th day it came to be that Moshe called Aaron and his sons and the elders of Israel, And he said to Aaron, take for yourself a young bull as a sin offering, and a ram as a burnt offering, a perfect one, and draw near with them before Yehovah. And speak to the children of Israel, saying, take a male goat as a sin offering, and a calf and a lamb, both a year old, perfect ones, as a burnt offering, and a bull and a ram as peace offerings to sacrifice before Yehovah, and a grain offering mixed with oil, for today Yehovah shall appear to you." In verse 5 it says, "And they took what Moshe commanded before the tent of meeting." You notice here the word before is the same word that was used for before Yehovah. Here, before Yehovah is panim Yehovah. Panim is one's face. So figuratively, to speak of being before someone, you would speak of being before their face. That's the word that is used. Moshe said, "This is the word which Yehovah commanded you to do, so that the esteem of Yehovah appears to you." And we're going to see that the esteem or the glory of Yehovah is going to appear to them. This is why they must be atoned for, to prepare them for this event. Moshe said to Aaron, "Draw near to the altar, prepare your sin offering and your burnt offering, and make atonement for yourself and for the people, and make the offering of the people, and make atonement for them as Yehovah has commanded." So Aaron and his sons are atoned for, so that the esteem of Yehovah, the glory of Yehovah, can appear to them. And then, once they are set apart, then they are to do this. They are to prepare the sin offering and also the burnt offering, so that they can make atonement for yourself and for the people. So the esteem of Yehovah is going to appear before Aaron and his sons, and the people, remember, are also gathered at the door of the tent of meeting. Verse 8 says, "So Aaron drew near to the altar and slaughtered the calf of the sin offering, which was for himself. And the sons of Aaron drew near with the blood to him, and he dipped his finger in the blood and put it on the horns of the altar and poured the blood at the base of the altar. And in Torah portion Terumah, we saw that not only the earthly ones, the copies of the heavenly tabernacle, have to be cleansed with blood, but also the heavenly tabernacle. So the copies of the heavenly needed to be cleansed with the blood of bulls and goats. The heavenly tabernacle with better sacrifices than these, with Yeshua's blood. Verse 10 says, "And the fat and the kidneys and the appendage on the liver of the sin offering, and he burned on the altar as Yehovah had commanded Moshe." Now, our English translation here says, "and he burned on the altar," but the word katar means he offered by fire. We're going to see the just general word for if you burn something, it is to seraph it, which is where we get seraphim from, the burning ones, if you like. So he didn't just burn it on the altar, he offered it by fire on the altar. And the flesh and the skin he burned with fire outside the camp. So that's seraph, and that's just a normal burning. And he slaughtered the burnt offering, and the sons of Aharon presented to him the blood, which he sprinkled on the altar all around. And again, that blood was for the cleansing of those things in the earthly tabernacle. Verse 13 says, "And they presented the burnt offering to him with its pieces and head, and he offered them by fire on the altar. And he washed the entrails and the legs and burned or offered them by fire with the burnt offering on the altar. And he drew near with the people's offering, their korban, and took the goat, which was the sin offering for the people, and slaughtered it and made it a sin offering like the first one." Verse 16 says, "And he brought the burnt offering and made it according to the judgment." Now, it says according to the mishpat, and what we're going to come to look at is that those in the body, certain people are to declare to other people the mishpat, the judgment. So you can see here, they were to do it according to the mishpat. How are we to find out what the mishpat is, what the Torah says about particular things? Maybe we know with some things, but the things that we're not sure about, Yehovah has provided a means by which we can inquire and find out. Verse 17 says, "He also drew near with the grain offering and filled his hand with it and offered it by fire on the altar, beside the burnt offering of the morning," which obviously was also being katared on the altar. "And he slaughtered the bull and the ram as peace offerings, which were for the people. And Aharon's sons presented to him the blood, which he sprinkled on the altar all around. And the fat from the bull and the ram, the fat tail and the covering and the kidneys and the appendage on the liver. And they placed the fat on the breasts, and he offered with fire the fat on the altar. But the breasts and the right thigh, Aharon waved as a wave offering, a tenufah. He nufed them as a tenufah before Yehovah, as Moshe had commanded. So now we've had the priests put into their position, washed, set apart, anointed, so that they can offer these things. And now we see that Aharon and his sons have taken over where Moshe was doing it before. Aharon then lifted up his hand toward the people and blessed them, and came down from making the sin offering and the burnt offering and the peace offerings. And Moshe and Aharon went into the tent of meeting and came out and blessed the people. And the esteem of Yehovah appeared to all the people. And fire came out from before the altar, before Yehovah, and consumed the burnt offering and the fat on the altar. And all the people saw and cried aloud and fell on their faces. Ezekiel 1:26-28 shows us something important. We've just read there. And see, the esteem of Yahovah appeared to all the people. So what exactly did the esteem of Yahovah look like? In order to find out, we go to Ezekiel chapter 1. Verse 26 says, and above the expanse over their heads, the word rakia can be translated as firmament or expanse. The ISR chooses expanse. Above the expanse of their heads was the likeness of a throne, in appearance like a sapphire stone. And on the likeness of the throne was a likeness as the appearance of a man, high above the throne, which is interesting. And from the appearance of his waist and upward, I saw what looked like glowing metal, with the appearance of fire all around within it. And from the appearance of his waist and downward, I saw what looked like fire and brightness all around, as the appearance of a rainbow in a cloud on a rainy day. So was the appearance of the brightness all around it. This was the appearance of the likeness of the esteem of Yahovah. So if you want to know what it looks like, that's what it looks like. The appearance of a rainbow in a cloud on a rainy day. And when I saw it, I fell on my face as I heard a voice of one speaking. And what did the people do? When they saw the glory of Yahovah, of course, they fell on their faces. Chapter 10 starts and says, and Nadav and Avihu, the sons of Aharon. And this stuck out to me again, this time reading through, just as Yitro is described as the father-in-law of Moshe. When Nadav and Avihu are mentioned, we see that they are Aharon's sons, and it particularly makes a point of that. Now, we have to reckon who these men were. We just read of, Nadab and Abihu, they're the ones who died by fire because they brought strange fire before Yahovah. But these are Aaron's sons. Aaron's wife bore them. She gave birth to them. Aaron raised these two young boys until the point that they were selected to be priests of Yahovah. And they were priests. They were just with him. They went through this entire ordination with him whenever these events happen. I think that these events must actually happen after Moshe receives the instructions for Aharon coming before Yahovah with incense. So I think that it's probably chronologically out of order. But either way, these men are newly priests. They've newly gone through this process with Aaron by the tabernacle. They stayed with him 7 days and 7 nights, and they're his sons whom he has raised. And you see them. They're said here to be the sons of Aharon. Each took his fire holder, put fire in it, put incense on it, and drew near with strange, and the word there is zuah, fire before Yahovah. And that word zuah, we see here, this is Gesenius. He says, as opposed to that which is upright, true, and lawful, strange is the same as unlawful. Okay, so the fire that they brought was not according to Torah, you could say. It's not what they had been asked to do. And they pay a heavy price for doing so. So Nadav and Abihu, the sons of Aharon, each took his fire holder and put fire in it, put incense on it, and brought strange fire before Yahovah, which he had not commanded them. And fire came out from Yehovah and consumed them, and they died before Yehovah. Then Moshe said to Aaron, "This is what Yehovah spoke, saying, by those who come near me I will be set apart, and before all the people let me be esteemed." And Aaron was silent. In the Septuagint version, it says that Aaron was pricked in his heart. Now, we don't have a record of Yehovah saying what Moshe referred to here. In Numbers 16, 8-11, we see something that is very similar to these events, though. It says, "And Moshe said to Korach, hear now, you sons of Levi." So Korach was a Levite. Okay, he had his duties that had been ascribed to him, that Yehovah had given him. This is what I want you to do in the body. But for Korach, it seems that it was not good enough. Their duties that they had been given, they wanted something more. So it's possible in my mind that this is true of Nadav and Avihu. They were priests, but they weren't the high priest. The high priest was to come in before Yehovah with incense. And they come before Yehovah with incense, and they get burnt up just as these people in Numbers, as we'll see when we get to the book of Numbers, get burnt up when they come with fire holders before Yehovah, 250 of them, in fact. With Korach, they were Levites. They weren't priests, but they wanted the priesthood for themselves, and this is often how people are. I'll get on to talking about, being leaders in the body, but I've experienced people who want to be in positions of leadership, and particularly when I was a bit younger, did not want to be under my authority as a leader in the body. They wanted it for themselves. They weren't pleased with what Yehovah had given to them to do, even though we know that he has ordained it to be so, according to what he says is right. They wanted something more, and I've experienced this a few times in people generally who are of that mindset, and certainly not everyone is of that mindset, but people who are tend to want to seek out that role for themselves. And you'll see, people who will try to, in some way, get a leadership role in a way that they've crafted for themselves, rather than them being called to that position by Yehovah. And it's just another manifestation of this same thing. They are sons of Levi, Korach and his crew. They were sons of Levi. They weren't happy with what they were to do, doing service in the tabernacle, teaching the Torah to Israel, even being the people would go to inquire as to what mishpat actually is. And we'll see that when we get to it. But they weren't happy with this role. They wanted to be the priests. The priests here perhaps wanted to be the high priest and to do the same thing. It's certainly possible, and even if that was not their motive for Nadab and Abihu, it certainly is the motive of some people. It's certainly true that is something which people are kind of fascinated with. They want to be in authority over other people. And you tend to find that people who want to be in authority are not very good at being in authority because they kind of like the power. The people who kind of shy away from that tend to be better leaders. We see that in verse 10. It says, "And that he has brought you near to himself, you and all your brothers, the sons of Levi with you, yet you seek the priesthood as well." So people who kind of desire that role, who want the priesthood as well, they're not happy with their lot, generally aren't good people to be leaders, people who want power over other people. And people can dress it up however they want, but that is kind of the root of it. They don't like being under someone's authority. They want to be that authority themselves. And I don't think the people who want that are generally good leaders. Like, I would say that I am generally quite an agreeable person. I don't really want to disagree with people, but I have it within myself to disagree with people. And if it is a matter of truth or a matter of something of importance, then I don't mind putting myself out there, putting myself out of my comfort zone to address something with people. But people who are just by nature disagreeable probably aren't all that good as leaders. People who actually want to be disagreeable with people rather than people who have the ability to disagree with people and to have confrontation, say, when it is necessary, and people who kind of like the idea of being able to tell people what to do. We'll see when we get round to it that that's how Yeshua describes the Gentiles, those who rule over the Gentiles, and we'll see the distinction that he draws between those who rule over the Gentiles and those who prostemi. The word that we'll look at is his people. But we'll get to that when we get to it. Verse 11 says, "Therefore you and all your company are set against Yehovah. And Aharon, what is he that you grumble against him?" And when you see people who are not happy with their lot, they want something else. Often you'll see that they're not really the sort of people who are going to be good in that role. Maybe people who don't like authority are being told, listen, you've got these problems, you need to sort them out. And so they'll have a problem with that authority. And then they will think, well, we'll just set ourselves up as some kind of authority. But that doesn't yield good results because they're not humble, obedient people in the first place. So to try to then oversee other people and maybe try to tell them that the word requires obedience, they just have no authority anyway, even if they try to take it for themselves. But we see this, it's funny, it's among the sons of Levi that it's pointed out. Nadav and Avihu are both obviously sons of Levi, sons of Amram, sons of Aaron. So they're that lineage, they're priests. But their broader lineage is the Levites. And here we see, of course, that Korach is a son of Levi. So he is a Levite as well, but he's not happy with his position. And Moshe says, "Therefore you and all your company are set against Yehovah." And these people don't even realize that that's what they're doing. And it would be the same if we were to rebel against the leadership of our countries that Yehovah has put in place. Something that I can relate to. The idea of it is not something that I think, oh no, that would be terrible. I think, yeah, they're an illegitimate authority. They don't rule well. So the idea of not listening to them is maybe not appealing to me, but it doesn't seem wrong naturally to me. Obviously, Yehovah's ways are higher than my ways and his thoughts higher than mine. And he knows. So you can see why people, particularly if they had leaders that were not ruling well, why they would want to rebel. But I think that there's this rebellion against authority, I think, is something which is kind of deep in a lot of people. They don't like the idea of being under someone's authority because, at the end of the day, men are fallible. So the idea of being under a fallible man is perhaps not appealing. A poor widow had a field. When she came to plough it, Moses forbade her to plough it with an ox and an ass together. When she began to sow, Moses forbade her to sow it with mingled seeds. At the time of harvest, Moses ordered her to leave unreaped the corners of her field, and not to gather up the gleanings, but to leave them for the poor. He furthermore demanded the heave offering for the priests and the tithe for the Levites. The woman sold the field and purchased ewes in the hope that she might live undisturbed. However, when the firstling of the sheep was born, Aharon appeared and demanded it as his due. At shearing time, Aaron reappeared and demanded the first of the fleece of the sheep, which according to Moses' law was his. He reappeared again and again with new demands till the long-suffering woman slaughtered the sheep and in her anger consecrated it to the sanctuary. Therefore everything went to Aaron. Such men, Korah concluded, are Moses and Aaron. As I say, I'm not saying that's what Korah believed or that there's any truth as to the factual nature of that statement. However, that sort of thinking is certainly present in people. That Moses and Aaron are trying to benefit themselves. That Aaron wants, he wants the first of the fleece, and he wants a tithe, and he wants, whatever else, all these things that this poor woman has to give to him. The gleanings of the field are set aside for the poor, so the poor woman would be able to enjoy the gleanings of the field. But regardless, this is a good example, not a factual example, a good parable, say, of how people perceive the commands of Yehovah. They kind of, because they're coming at things from a selfish point of view, because they are the center of their own worlds, they perceive other people to have the same sort of motives as they do. As we continue through, we'll see that those who are in leadership are not the sort of people that this will be true of. We know that Moshe was the most humble man that there had been, for example. So none of this would have been true of Moses and Aaron. It's just simply what Yehovah commands, but people's imaginations get the better of them. And you can see how through believing things that are false, people can be misled into rebellion. If they think that they're justified in doing something and that the authority that they're to follow is unjust, then they can just do whatever they want. What they're doing, though, is they're taking Yehovah out of the equation. They're not reckoning him as part of reality. They're not reckoning him as the reason why all these things were so. They're certainly not reckoning him as the one who's put Moshe and Aharon in the position in which they're in. So that simple mistake actually shows that they are not people who believe the word. People who believe the word could never see things like that, even if they thought that Moses and Aaron were people who were benefiting themselves unjustly. Let's say Moses and Aaron are unjust people. Then people who believe the word know that Yehovah is just, and that they will get their just recompense, and they're happy to leave such things in the hands of the righteous judge because they believe the word. However, people who don't believe the word don't reckon things like that. They see the world as working mechanistically. Even if they say that they believe in God and they can reckon in their heads intellectually that is how things must work, what they do is they disbelieve what is actually written in the Word. They don't reckon things according to what is written, even though they might intellectually accede to it. 1 Corinthians 12:12-25 says, "For as the body is one and has many members, but all the members of that one body, being many, are one body, so also is the Messiah. For indeed, by one Spirit we were all baptized into one body, whether Yehudim or Greeks, whether slaves or free, and we were all made to drink into one Spirit. For indeed the body is not one member, but many. If the foot says, because I am not a hand, I do not belong to the body, does it therefore not belong to the body?" This is similar to Korach. They were saying, okay, we're Levites, but we want the priesthood also. And it's true of the people that I have spoken about. The body is a body. All of the parts of the body are needed for the body to function. If one part of the body says, I want to be the hand, I want to be the one who makes decisions, I want to be the one who teaches the Torah for whatever reason that might be in their own mind, I want to be the one who does whatever. And because I'm not that thing, I don't belong to the body, because things aren't set as I want them to be. And if the ear says, because I am not an eye, I do not belong to the body, does it therefore not belong to the body? If all the body was an eye, where would be the hearing? If all hearing, where would be the smelling? But now Elohim has set the members, each one in the body, as he pleased. And that's the important thing, that everyone is put in the body as Elohim pleased. So we know that they are in the right position. If you think, well, I don't even know what I'm supposed to do in the body, you don't know what you're already doing in the body. And you certainly don't know whether you're like Moses, being a shepherd for 40 years before he was called to lead Yehovah's body. That might well be the case. You just don't know. And you, as I say, you don't know if what you are currently doing in the body is what Yehovah wants you to do. You know, you might think that things are of little account, but maybe the conversation that you have with somebody, maybe that was a big turning point in their walk. You know, I'm just speculating here. I'm not trying to give you concrete examples. But you don't know. Elohim knows, and we trust in Elohim. Those who believe his word operate in that way anyway. Those who don't believe his word, but are kind of tangentially associated with it, they may see things differently. They may see things from the fleshly mind rather than the mind of the Spirit. Verse 19 says, "And if they had been one member, where would the body be? And now there are indeed many members, but one body. And an eye is unable to say to the hand, I have no need of you. Or again, the head to the feet, I have no need of you." So I said this was going to go to verse 25, but it goes to 21 instead. So we are not able to say to other members of the body that we have no need of them. Okay, so many people will say we don't need teachers in the body. We've all got the Holy Spirit, something I've mentioned before, something that Charlie has talked about also. I've got the Spirit to lead me, but I'm not going to allow the Spirit to lead me by that Spirit being on someone else and them being the person in leadership, or them being the person who is teaching. I'm not going to be led by the Spirit like that. I will be led by the Spirit only if I've got my own autonomy. Only if I am the one that receives revelation or whatever it may be. That's the only way that I am led by the Spirit. I'm not open to any other way. I certainly have no need of teachers or leaders. I'm able to do it on my own. So be careful. Be aware that the Word tells us that those thoughts are going to be present sometimes. So if they're present within you, heed the warning of Scripture. If you believe Scripture, I don't mean if you believe that it's true. I mean if you believe in it enough to act according to it. Jude 8 to 19, Jude being one chapter, says, in the same way, indeed, these dreamers defile the flesh and reject authority and speak evil of esteemed ones. But Michael, the archangel, in contending with the devil when he disputed about the body of Moshe, presumed not to bring against him a blasphemous accusation, but said, Yehovah rebuke you. So this is a great example of somebody who could think, I am acting according to something that is good. I'm contending about the body of Moses. That's a good thing. But he didn't contend even with Hasatan to bring a blasphemous accusation against Hasatan. We tend to think of blasphemy as something that can only be done against Yehovah. But to blaspheme means to speak against the name of. So Michael can speak against the name of the devil. And he might be right, he might be wrong. But what he would be doing is blaspheming Hasatan. But these blaspheme that which they do not know, and that which they know naturally, like unreasoning beasts. In these they corrupt themselves. Woe to them, because they have gone in the way of Cain, and gave themselves up to the delusion of Balaam for a reward, and perished in the rebellion of Korah. These are rocky reefs in your love feast, feasting with you, feeding themselves without fear, waterless clouds borne about by the winds, late autumn trees without fruit, twice dead, death of the body, death of the soul, pulled up by the roots. So we're told that these people will be amongst us, but we're also told that they are without fruit, that they are things which do not fulfill their purpose. They're waterless clouds. They're late autumn trees which should have fruit upon them. That's their purpose, but they don't. They don't bear fruit. They are, for want of a better word, worthless. Verse 13 says, wild waves of the sea, foaming up their own shame, straying stars for whom blackness of darkness is kept forever. And I believe that's talking about the second death, the death in the sea, the wild waves of the sea, foaming up their own shame, straying stars for whom the blackness of darkness is kept forever, because that's what they choose. They choose darkness rather than light. And Enoch, the seventh from Adam, also prophesied of these, saying, see, Yehovah comes with his myriads of holy ones to execute judgment on all, to punish all who are wicked among them concerning all their wicked works which they have committed in a wicked way, and concerning all the harsh words which wicked sinners have spoken against him. And if people think at this point, wow, that's a quote from the book of Enoch, there's a video called The Mysterious Book of Enoch on the channel that I would point you to as a video that might be profitable for you. These are grumblers, complainers who walk according to their own lusts, and their mouth speaks proudly, admiring faces of others for the sake of gain. So this is where they will give fealty to others for the sake of their own gain. But they're grumblers, they're complainers, they walk according to their own lusts, and we're told that these people will be amongst the body. But you, beloved ones, remember the words spoken before by the apostles of our Lord Yeshua Messiah, because they told you that there would be mockers in the last time who walk according to their own lusts. These are the ones who cause divisions, not having the Spirit. So if you meet as a fellowship, then you may well have people like this among you. And certainly people who organize things like that will know who the grumblers and the complainers are. But the word tells us that they will be present. If you meet as a fellowship, the word actually details something which is important. People, again, very much like the idea of, we're going to have a midrash about the Torah portion and everyone's going to come around and give their own ideas about it. People don't like what the Bible sets out as the model by which these things should be done. Okay, there is supposed to be leadership. So if you meet as a fellowship, you should have, according to Scripture, an overseer, and we'll look at what the overseer's role is within the fellowship. But these ideas of we all just give our own opinion and there's no kind of structure to it, you then get divisions within the group. You get infighting, people who think that they've got this doctrine or that doctrine, but there's no teacher or pastor who is supposed to teach the word and give everyone a unifying sort of focal point around which everyone can gather. It stops all of these divisions that you tend to get when everyone just meets up and everyone's got their own ideas about everything. If Yehovah has put a leader in place, has given someone the gift to be able to teach the word by his Spirit, not just someone who has taken that responsibility upon themselves, then that is good. And you have, if you like, a vessel through whom Yehovah can guide and lead the fellowship. If it's done correctly, I think all of us have distrust about such things, because we kind of think of things as the imaginary Korah did in the piece of text we read before. There's an element of, distrust of that thing rather than believing the word of Yehovah and saying, well, this is how it is supposed to be. Okay, if you believe the word, then you will overcome that within yourself and you will say, well, actually, there's a better way than the way I would naturally think to do this. And actually, I suppose it is Yehovah doing this by his Spirit. It is him leading me into all truth by his Spirit. That is not how perhaps I imagine it at first. So if you meet in a fellowship, listen closely to what I'm going to go over up until the end of part 1 about how Yehovah wants those things to be done. Romans 13, 1-2 says, let every being, or every soul that should be in subjection to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except from Elohim, and the authorities that exist are appointed by Elohim. So he who opposes the authority withstands the institution of Elohim, and those who withstand shall bring judgment on themselves. In context, Romans 13 is, of course, talking about kind of the authorities of the world and us being in subjection to them. Romans, of course, being written to a people who were under the authority of the Roman authorities. So it doesn't surprise me that this is written to them. But quite shocking to know that if we are to withstand that institution, then we are bringing judgment on ourselves, because all authority is from Elohim. How much more so in his body? Luke 22:24-27 says, "And there also took place a dispute among them as to which of them seemed to be greater. And he said to them, the rulers of the Gentiles rule over them, and those who control them are called workers of good." It's simply a title that he's talking about, not what they are. "But not so with you. Let him who is greatest among you be as the youngest, and the leader as one who serves. For who is greater, the one who sits at the table or the one who serves? Is it not the one who sits at the table? But I'm in your midst as the one who serves." So Yeshua says here, basically, I am your leader, and yet I am serving you. That is how things should be amongst you. The leader should be the one who serves. Charlie and I are leaders of the Way Biblical Fellowship, but we don't rule over people and exercise dominion over them. We make decisions on certain things. We provide service to people in teaching the word and providing a place that people can come and be part of a fellowship. But we're not like the rulers of the Gentiles. We don't have dominion over people. The word that Yeshua uses here, kuriuo, we see to be lord of, to rule, to have dominion over, exercising lordship over. And it's from the word kuriuo that we get the word kurios, which is the word which is used in the Septuagint, where you find Yehovah. We have the Lord. In the Septuagint, you will find kurios. It's also the word which is used to refer to Yeshua when he is called Lord in the New Testament. So he certainly has dominion over us. He rules over us. And the rulers of the Gentiles like things to be so with them. They think that they have the same authority over people, and perhaps they do. The word exousiazo is to have power or authority, to use power to exercise authority upon. So Yeshua says the rulers of the Gentiles exercise lordship over them, and those who control them, who exercise authority over them, are called workers of good. But it's not so with you. The leader should be the one who serves. So those people who are kind of hungry for power, they want a position within the body, often they're looking at it as if they're going to be, rulers like the rulers of the Gentiles. That's not the way that it should be, though. The leader, the one that Yehovah will count as great, will be the one who serves other people. And we'll see words related to this, diakoneo, which means to serve. It's the word from which we get deacon from. But we'll look at that as we go through. And I want to encourage people who may be meeting in groups as fellowships, that the word has a way to improve what you are doing. Maybe you're meeting in a group and you're talking about things and everyone is bringing their own opinion on it. Maybe there are divisions within the group. I certainly speak to people who say that things are so. What is needed is an overseer. That is how the word explains the way that these things should be. An overseer is not one who has dominion over the other people, but they are one who serves the other people. They might be a pastor or a teacher. They might be someone that knows the word in a way that people can come to them to find out what the word says about particular things, but one who serves the rest of the body. So if you have a decision over who to make overseer of the fellowship, it's not the one who's trying to control everybody else. It's the one who serves the other people in whatever capacity that might be. And they will be the person who makes decisions. So when there is disagreement and a decision has to be made, that person will be the person who has to make the decision. Also the person that other people can go to about decisions that have to be made. Not that they have this position of authority over people, in as much as they can rule over them, but they do have authority over them in as much as they can make the decisions about how things should be done. They can make decisions on things like doctrine. They shouldn't be somebody who just says, this is the way that it is, this is how I see it, and I am unchangeable on this. But if somebody disagrees with something, they should be able to convince them from the word, or at least show them in the word where what they are saying is incorrect. And they should have it within themselves to be able to say, oh, actually, yeah, you're right. That's the way that it is. And to change position. I did a Torah portion Shoftim on this. If you look for it on the channel, you look for a Torah portion Shoftim. It's the one with the picture of Absalom, guy with long hair. If you want to look at that, that covers how to reasonably disagree with somebody that Yehovah has put in authority, because we're all fallible people. So how do you reckon with somebody who is fallible, who may have made a mistake over something? How do you approach them? And how should that situation be governed in the case that at the end of it, there's still a disagreement? What should you do? I would recommend watching that. But if you're meeting in fellowships, there should be an overseer of the fellowship. There are many people who consider this to be their fellowship, and that's great. You know, it's really good. But if you're meeting in groups of people, there are enough of you to meet, there should be an overseer, there should be a decision maker, and that person should have certain characteristics that we'll get onto to look at. 1 Thessalonians 5:12-13 says, but brothers, we beg you to know those who labor among you and are over you in the master and admonish you, and to hold them in the highest regard and love because of their work. Be at peace among yourselves. And we saw who these people should be. They should be those who serve. When it says they are over you, it's not in the way that the rulers of the Gentiles are. The word there is prostemi. Okay, prostemi is a word which means to set or place before. To set over, to be over, to superintend, to preside over. So somebody can preside over a meeting or a fellowship without ruling over the other people with dominion over them. But they can still be the person who has the final say about how things are to be done. And that's how Yehovah sets things up. We see here, okay, to stand before, to preside, to practice, to maintain, to be over. And then it uses the word rule, but we've got the context in which they are ruling. Okay, there were rulers among the children of Israel who, if Yehovah had things how he wanted them, then they would be of this type also. So, of course, there are people who have authority who preside over meetings or fellowships, but they don't have dominion over the other people. They're not to be controlling of the other people, for example. They are to exercise the authority that they've been given within the bounds that the word gives. They're to be servants to the other people. Yes, they get to make the decisions, but that doesn't mean they are like the rulers of the Gentiles. So if you're meeting in fellowships, you need to have somebody who is in that position. And if everybody can't decide on somebody, then there is a possibility that actually shows that people are coming from the wrong place. If everyone wants to be in that position of authority and can't recognize the person within the group who serves the other people, who is the teacher, they want that for themselves, so they won't give it to anyone else, then maybe that's a problem, and maybe that's part of what I've been discussing. Maybe, not definitely. Maybe, though, it's certainly possible. Matthew 23, 1-12 says, Then Yeshua spoke to the crowds and to his disciples, saying, The scribes and the Pharisees sit on the seat of Moshe. Therefore, whatever they say to you, guard and do. But do not do according to their works, for they say and do not do. So these people were the people who were in authority over the people. And Yeshua says, what they tell you to do, the Torah from the seat of Moshe, do what they say. But don't do according to what they do, because they're hypocrites. They'll teach the Torah, but they won't do it themselves. Verse 4 says, For they bind heavy burdens hard to bear and lay them on men's shoulders, but with their finger they do not wish to move them. And of course they had the oral Torah, which had all sorts of weird regulations in. And they do all their work to be seen by men. They make the tefillin wide and lengthen the zitziot of their garments, and they love the best place at feasts and the best seats in the congregations. I would suggest that if there are people in the fellowship who are like that, they're not good people to be in leadership. Maybe they do serve other people, but maybe they do it to be seen of other people. They do charitable works in order to be known among men as someone who does that. They want that position and authority in the eyes of other people. They love the best places at the feasts and the best seats in the congregation. Oh no, I sit here. This seat is the seat of the leader. This is where I sit. I want the best seat. People like that, Yeshua counsels us, maybe they're not the best people to have as leaders. If they're telling you keep the Torah, certainly do the Torah, but don't do according to their works, because they're hypocrites. And often those sorts of people will be the sorts of people that when they're tested, they fall. Okay, you probably want the faithful to be the leaders, the people who are examples to the other people, people who are obedient in the first. If people are disobedient, that's not a good place to start out from as leader, a position of disobedience. You want people who are examples, as I say. So if you're meeting in groups, bear these things in mind. Verse 7 says, And the greetings in the marketplaces, and to be called by men, Rabbi, Rabbi. They love the titles and they love all the pomp and ceremony that comes with leadership in the eyes of men. But you do not be called Rabbi, for one is your teacher, the Messiah, and you are all brothers. And do not call anyone on earth your father, for one is your Father, he who is in the heavens. Neither be called leaders, for one is your leader, the Messiah. But the greatest among you shall be your servant. That same word again. And whoever exalts himself shall be humbled, and whoever humbles himself shall be exalted. So here, Yeshua is not going against the Torah when it says, honor your father and your mother. He's not saying don't call anyone father Don't have leaders. The Torah calls for leaders. Don't call anyone teacher. The Levites were the teachers. So he's not going against the Torah. What he's saying here is, don't have men teaching what men teach, like the Pharisees and the scribes were with their oral Torah. Don't go to them to get your teaching. Okay, if you have a leader or a teacher, they should be teaching the words of Elohim, and therefore they are not your teacher. They can teach you the teaching of Elohim, but that is not them being your teacher. That's what Yeshua is talking about here. Don't go to men for the doctrine of men, like we talked about recently with the Jewish Midrash and all sorts of authorities that put themselves in positions of being leader over people. Don't go to them to find out what is right. Call no man teacher. Messiah, Elohim, is your teacher. That's where the teaching comes from. Someone can explain the teaching of Elohim to you and teach you what it means, but that's not them being your teacher, because they're teaching you Elohim's teaching. 1 Timothy 3 verse 1 in the King James Version says, "This is a true saying, if a man desires the office of a bishop." In verse 8, it speaks of deacons, and men have very much taken the word of Elohim and they've made it into something that it's not. They've made their own positions that were never in the word of Elohim in the first place. Okay, it doesn't say bishops and deacons. That might have been familiar to the King James translators, but deacons is not a position in the body. What the word actually says, okay, it says, if a man longs for the position of an overseer, and it's episcope, okay, he desires a good work, which is true. That's not saying all of these people who want to be the overseers of a fellowship for their own reasons, they desire a good work. But the position of an overseer is defined in the word. And if that's what they desire to be a servant and to teach the word of Elohim as it is and serve the people in the body, that is a good work. Okay, but it's an overseer, it's not a bishop. And we'll look at that word. Okay, episcope, investigation, inspection, or visitation. You see a similar word when it talks about the visitations of Yehovah. Okay, by implication, superintendents, specifically the Christian episcopate. Okay, the office of a bishopric visitation, words that are not familiar to us. Okay, we see here oversight. So, by implication, an overseership, office, charge, the office of an elder. And we'll look at that word, elder, because it's got different meanings than just those who have a seniority in age. But basically, the word that's used here, it means to oversee, that they should have an overseer over the fellowship. This word is episkopos, okay, related word, and overseer. This is often the word that we'll see a man charged with the duty of seeing the things to be done by others are done rightly, i.e. a curator, a guardian, or a superintendent. So that position within the body, making sure that things are done rightly, that means that things are done according to the word of Yehovah. In 1 Peter 2:25, we see that word that the shepherd and overseer, episkopos, of your souls. Okay, you were like sheep going astray, but now have returned to Yehovah. And Yehovah ultimately has that position of making sure that things are done correctly. The word episkopeo, okay, means to look upon, to inspect, oversee, look after, or care for. You see, this is the verb which is being done by an overseer. So an overseer watches over things, cares for things, and makes sure that things are done according to the right way to do it. As I say, in the body of Messiah, an overseer is making sure that things are done according to the word. That's their role. They're not, they're not rulers like the Gentiles have, where they can tell anyone what to do and say, you go and do this for me, fetch this and serve for me and whatever else. That's not the role that they have. So if you're meeting in fellowships, this is the role that is up for grabs, if you like. The role of somebody who is the person who will care for the other person, other people in the fellowship. Part of that role is that they will make decisions, and we'll see the other characteristics that they should have. But it's not the role of a ruler. We're not choosing who's in charge here, as in who can cause other people to do things that they want them to. Okay, that's not the role. The role is different. The role is of a caregiver. So they're the sorts of things that you should be bearing in mind. 1 Peter 5 verse 2 says, shepherd the flock of Elohim which is among you, serving as episkopeo, not by compulsion, but voluntarily, not out of greed for filthy gain, but eagerly. Okay, so that is the advice to the overseer. They're the people that you're looking for. Somebody who wants to do that job, and it's not going to be a job that's filled with perks. Often a hard job to do, as I said before. I like to think that I'm quite an agreeable person. Well, that's how I apprehend myself. I like to be agreeable with people. I find it difficult to say when something is not correct. But it's my job as an overseer to make sure that things are done according to the word of Elohim. I can't not do that because I will be defying Elohim himself. So I'm not prepared to just let things be done however people want to do them. I want things to be done as Elohim would have them to be done. So for me, it's not a job that's filled with perks. But I obviously enjoy teaching the word of Elohim because I see that as a valuable thing. I want people to learn it. I want people to implement it in their lives and to believe it and to see the fruit of doing so. Not because I desire any recognition for myself, but because I recognize that Elohim is good, and I want other people to recognize that Elohim is good and the good that he has done in their lives. And I would say, and maybe I would say that, but I would say that that is the sort of person that you want to be an overseer of a fellowship if you've got a decision to make now as to, okay, who is going to be the overseer. 2 Chronicles 34 verse 12, we see this word used in the Septuagint. The men were faithfully engaged in the works, and over them were translated superintendents here, but it's this episkopos, Jeth and Abdias. Okay, and who were they? They were Levites, sons of Merari, so they were the Merari, or the Merarites. And Zacharias and Mosallam, the sons of Kaath, appointed to oversee, and every Levite and everyone that understood how to play on musical instruments. So just like the Levites were to teach, and that's the role that we see overseers having now, the ones who were chosen as overseers in the past were the Levites. And I would suggest that that is for good reason, because those who are to lead in the body of Messiah have to know the word of Elohim. So it should be those who are capable of teaching the word of Elohim who lead, because they are making sure that things are done rightly, that things are being done according to the word of Elohim. And so in order for that to be the case, they must know the word of Elohim. Here we have the word episkeptomai, okay, to look upon or to look after, to inspect, to examine with the eyes. Okay, so again, another related word that we have here, to look upon in order to help or to benefit, not to look upon in order to have dominion over or to control, but to serve in order to help and to be of benefit. They're the sorts of people that you should be choosing. Now, I'm going to look at 1 Timothy 3, which gives us criteria for overseers. So if you've got a decision to make, consider these things. Trustworthy is the word. If a man longs for the position of an overseer, he desires a good work, if they actually want to be overseers and not just people in charge. An overseer, then, should be blameless, the husband of one wife, sober, sensible, orderly, kind to strangers, and able to teach. Not given to wine, no brawler, but gentle, not quarrelsome, no lover of money. So somebody who has the lusts of the flesh in check. One who rules, prostemi, or proistemi here, his own house well. Again, not rules as in a dictator, but one who serves his own house well, having his children in subjection with all reverence. So it's not bad for these people to have some level of governance or level of control over those in their care, but it must all be coming from this root of them serving, of them looking after the people in their charge. Okay, children being subject to their father is a good thing. It's not because fathers are tyrants. It's because it is for the good of the child that that person has some degree of authority over them. Verse 5 says, "For if a man does not know how to rule his own house, how shall he look after the assembly of Elohim? Not a new convert, a neophytos, lest he become puffed up with pride and fall into the judgment of the devil." So this is not somebody who is newly come to a knowledge of Elohim, newly come to having learnt the word. They're not suitable. And we're given the reason why here. But it's somebody who proistemi his house well, so that he can proistemi the assembly of Elohim, not rule over them, rather to serve them. 1 Timothy 3 verse 10, again we see it being spoken of here as the office of a deacon, which is why I use this translation. But a deacon is an office which has been created by men. You see in the Christian church the idea of, well, we've got the pastor and then we've got the deacons, if they follow the Bible or they think that they do. But actually, what's being described by the word is different. Okay, we saw this word before, diakoneo. Okay, diakoneo from diakonos means something different. Okay, it means to be a servant, an attendant, a domestic, to serve or wait upon people. Okay, used of those who wait at tables, offer food and drink to the guests, perhaps. Okay, to be an attendant, to wait upon. So it is those who serve. It's used of servants, in fact. So that is the office, if you want to use those terms. You have an overseer, and then you have people in the fellowship who serve. People might choose not to serve in the fellowship, but those who are deacons, if you like, are simply those who serve, okay, which is what anyone who wants to be a leader in the kingdom should be. They should be servants. If people hear about this and they say, oh no, while I thought it was a deacon, I thought it was someone important, I wanted that role, but now that I realize it's a servant's role, I'm not so happy about that. They're not the sort of people that you want. And if you hear that and you think, oh yeah, actually that was the reaction that I had, you should exclude yourself from the idea of being an overseer. Okay, so we have this spoken of as let people prove themselves as servants within the body if they want to be overseers. So if you meet as a fellowship, look to who are the people who serve the body the most. Who are the ones who do the things that no one else wants to do? The menial jobs, very important to Yehovah, but the menial jobs, who are those people? They're probably good people to put in positions of leadership. But, the people who want the position of leadership, maybe they're not quite so good. So if you're selecting people, look, who is it that is serving the body? Because they're the people that the word says are the ones who should be chosen. If we look at the word diakonos, one who executes the commands of another, especially of a master, a servant, an attendant, or minister, used of the servant of a king, okay, also used of a waiter. Some confusion here of a deacon within the church. Of course, this is outline of biblical usage. This is not a definition. Okay, so it speaks here of someone who runs errands. Compare this other word. It says a waiter at a table or other menial duties. Okay, so they're the people that you should be looking for. If they have the other characteristics that are spoken of, if they are male, if they're able to teach, if they have control over their faculties, they don't go after the lusts of the flesh, they're the people who are suitable to be overseers in your fellowship. Matthew 22 verse 13 says, then the king said to his servants, okay, bind him hand and foot. So this is how this word is used. Maybe you're familiar with the word deacon, but that's not quite a correct understanding. 1 Timothy 3:10-13 says, and let these also first be proved. Let them use the office of a servant, being found blameless. Even so must their wives be grave, not slanderous, sober, faithful in all things. Let the servants be the husbands of one wife, ruling, but proistemi, their children and their own households well. For they have they that have used the office of a servant well, purchased to themselves a good degree and great boldness in the faith which is in Messiah Yeshua. Philippians 1 verse 1 says, Shaul and Timothy, servants of Yeshua Messiah, to all the set-apart ones in Messiah Yeshua who are in Philippi, with the overseers and the attendants, okay, the bishops and the deacons, as maybe the King James would say. But hopefully now you have a better understanding of these words, and you can better understand who it is who should be proistemiing your fellowship. You want these characteristics in them. You want the people who are serving the other people, not the people who put themselves forward as leaders. 1 Timothy 3, 1-3 says, trustworthy is the word. If a man longs for a position of an overseer, he desires a good work. So this is from the ISR with the correct words in, so that you can see exactly what is being taught by Paul here. An overseer should be blameless, the husband of one wife, sober, sensible, orderly, kind to strangers, able to teach. Not given to wine, no brawler, but gentle, not quarrelsome, no lover of money, one who rules his own house well, having his children in subjection with all reverence. For if a man does not know how to rule his own house, how shall he look after the assembly of Elohim? And again here it's talking about looking after the assembly of Elohim, which is what this word proistemi is alluding to, what it means to look after, to have in one's care like you do your children. Yes, you have authority over them to tell them what is right, but not in a way where you are abusing that authority or where you're having dominion over them. You have that authority over them for their good, and the same is true of an overseer. Not a new convert, lest he become puffed up with pride and fall into the judgment of the devil. And he should even have a good witness from those who are outside, lest he fall into reproach in the snare of the devil. Likewise, attendants or servants are to be reverent, not double-tongued, not given to much wine, not greedy for filthy gain, holding to the secret of the belief with a clean conscience. And let these also be proved first. Let them serve, if they are unreprovable, women in the same way, reverent, not false accusers, sober, trustworthy in every way. Let servants be the husband of only one wife, ruling children and their own households well. For those who have served well as attendants or servants gain good standing for themselves and much boldness in the belief that is in Messiah Yeshua. So this is how your fellowship should be. You should look who are the ones who serve the other people once they've proven themselves in that role. If they have the other characteristics, they are suitable to be overseer. Much more so, I would say, if they don't want the role. They're the ones that you want to give it to. They're the ones who will proistemi well. I hope that that's of use to people who are in fellowships, and if not, just interesting to people who are perhaps just out there alone with no fellowship. That this is how Yahovah has always governed his body. He's always put people in those positions. At first, it was the Levites who were able to teach. Now we have these instructions given by Paul, which are exactly according to what we learn in the Old Testament, in the Torah. But we'll come back in the second part. So Deuteronomy 17 verse 9 says, "And shall come to the priests, the Levites, and to the judge who is in those days, and shall inquire, and they shall declare to you the word of justice," the word of mishpat. And we saw before that they were to offer things according to the mishpat. So there needs to be somebody who can explain what Yehovah's ways are to people. And I see things exactly the same now in the new covenant as it was when the Torah was given. Yehovah doesn't change. The way that he thinks things should be hasn't changed. We don't have people who are by lineage teachers of the Torah, but we do have people who are teachers of the Torah, are people to whom others can go to find out the word of justice or the word of mishpat, to find out what is right with Yehovah. We have those people now. They are doing the same job as the Levites did then. So I don't think things have changed all that much. If at all that's really changed is we are now scattered among the nations. So we can see what the judges and the Levites did, the positions of authority, the Yehovah declared to be so. They were the people to whom others would come to find out what was right. And as we saw, that's what the word translated as overseer, what that entails, that position of overseer. So people who are in that position should have those characteristics we went through before. They should be able to teach, and people should be able to come to them to learn the word of Elohim. Because we're not creating a little kingdom on earth for men. We are establishing the word of Elohim in the kingdom of Elohim on the earth. That's what it's all about. So our leaders, our overseers, have no other qualifications other than that which is in the word of Elohim, and that they can proliferate the word of Elohim. That's the whole purpose. It's nothing else. It's no kind of rule or dominion or authority of men which is being spoken of here. Deuteronomy 1:19-17 says, "And I spoke to you at that time, saying, I am unable to bear you by myself. Yehovah your Elohim has increased you, and see, you are today as numerous as the stars of the heavens. Yehovah Elohim of your fathers is going to add to you 1,000 times more than you are, and bless you as he has spoken to you. How do I bear your pressure and your burden and your strife by myself? Choose men, wise and understanding, known to your tribes, and let me appoint them as your heads. And you answered me and said, the word which you have spoken to us to do is good. And I took the heads of your tribes, wise men and known, made them heads over you, leaders of thousands, leaders of hundreds, leaders of 50s, and leaders of 10s, and officers for your tribes. And I commanded your judges at that time, saying, when hearing between your brothers, judge righteously between a man and his brother, or the stranger who is with him. Do not show partiality in mishpat. Hear the small rather as well as the great. Do not be afraid of anyone's face, for the justice belongs to Elohim. And the case which is too hard for you, bring it to me, and I shall hear it. So here we have more criteria for people who are Elohim's leaders. Okay, they should judge in this way, or rather maybe it's just instructions for people in that position as to how they should be. Okay, they judge righteously between a man and his brother. They do not show partiality in justice, and all of the other things that we see in the Torah that is told to the judges. We see in Numbers 11:16-17, it says, Then Yehovah said to Moshe, Gather to me 70 men of the elders of Israel, whom you know to be elders of the people and officers over them, and bring them to the tent of meeting and let them stand there with you. And I shall come down and speak with you there, and shall take of the Spirit that is on you and put on them. And they shall bear the burden of the people with you, so that you do not bear it yourself alone. So this is an integral component of those who are to lead Yehovah's people and make decisions and judge between one person and another and all of those sorts of things. They are to have the Spirit of Yehovah upon them to do those things. So, of course, I imagine if you're choosing overseers, you're going to choose people who you recognize to have the Spirit of Elohim, and that should be the Spirit by which they teach others of the things of Elohim. It should all be coming from the Spirit of Elohim rather than the spirit or the understanding of the person. Acts 14 verse 23 says, And having appointed elders in every assembly. Okay, so this speaks of elders being appointed. So we might have an idea in our heads as to what is meant by an elder. Okay, maybe something like this. Okay, but that's not actually what the word is talking about when it's speaking of elders. It might be people who are older. They might be a good choice. But the word translated as elder is not a word which only speaks of someone's age. We look at the word presbyteros or presbyteros, as it would be pronounced. Talks about elder of age. He could speak about the elder between two people. A term of rank or office is the other way in which it is used. Okay, so it's not just someone who is older, but it's also somebody who has the position of presbyteros, whatever the Hebrew word would be, in the body of Messiah. In Luke 15:25, we see it used of one who is elder between two people. His elder son was in the field. So we can say it can talk about age, but it doesn't always. 1 Peter 5 verse 5, in the same way, okay, you younger ones, be subject to elders. Again, talking about age. Do not rebuke an elder man. Okay, talking about age again. But appeal to him as a father, younger ones as brothers, elderly women, same term, as mothers, younger ones as sisters in all cleanliness. So it can refer to age, certainly. We see in Job 32, 6-9, it says, And Elihu, son of Barachel the Buzite, responded and said, I am young in years, and you are aged. Therefore, I was afraid to let you know my opinion. I said they should speak, and many years should teach wisdom. But truly, it is in the spirit. It is the spirit, rather, in man, and the breath of the Almighty that gives him understanding. The multitude are not wise, nor do the aged understand mishpat. Not necessarily anyway. Not that if you're old you don't understand mishpat. What it's saying is the way that things are with Elohim is it's his spirit which gives understanding. So I'm not particularly old, and yet I am able to teach the word of Elohim. I have understanding and wisdom in terms of what the word teaches. I understand Mishpat. I can instruct other people in Mishpat. So don't get confused when it speaks of elders. It can also be talking about, and it is when it's talking about leadership in the church, it's talking about a rank or an office. It's kind of like a position. An overseer would be necessarily an elder, even if an overseer was not old in age. 1 Timothy 4 verse 12 says, "Let no one look down on your youth, but be an example to the believers in word, in behavior, in love, in spirit, in belief, in cleanliness." So Paul is writing to Timothy here as he writes to other pastors to speak to them of how they are to be overseers of the assembly. And he refers to Timothy as being young, but he says, don't let anyone despise your age. Don't let anyone look down on you because of your age. Genesis 50 verse 7 says, "And Yosef went up to bury his father, and with him went up all the servants of Pharaoh, the elders of his house, and all the elders of the land of Mithraim." And this is, again, it's zaken, the Hebrew word. It's used of a position, not just, it was all the old people who lived in his house. Okay, so when you are choosing an overseer, don't think because it says an elder that they have to be, have seniority in age to everyone else. Exodus 3 verse 16 says, "Go and you shall gather the elders of Israel together." Again, speaking of the position, it's not speaking like this, go and get all the people with grey hair together and speak to them. Numbers 11 verse 16 says, "Then Yehovah said to Moshe, gather to me 70 men of the elders of Israel, whom you know to be the elders of the people and officers." So it's saying those men that you know to have that position. It's not saying those men whom you know to be old. Okay, that would make sense here. Not gather the ones that you know to be old, that you know to be elders among the people, so you can be an elder among the people and yet not be elderly, if you like. Deuteronomy 1 verse 15 says, "And I took the heads of your tribes, wise men and known, and made them heads over you." Okay, so these are the people that he chooses to make elders, not just the old ones, the ones who were the heads of your tribes, possibly not the elderly, wise ones and known. They are the same sort of characteristics that we see as elders and overseers today when we assemble, when we have fellowship with others. The ones who are to be over them are to be wise according to the word. They are to understand the word and to be able to teach the word to others. Matthew 15 verse 2 says, "Why do your disciples transgress the tradition of the elders?" Same word there. "For they do not wash their hands when they eat bread." And it could be, I suppose, talking about those who are aged. Why don't they keep the traditions of the people who are older? Much more likely, in my opinion, to be talking about those who are perhaps the teachers, those who have position, those who would teach the oral Torah. Maybe they were old, maybe they weren't. Mark 14 verse 53 says, "And they led Yeshua away to the high priest, and all the chief priests and the elders and the scribes came together to him. So same thing. Revelation 5 verse 14, we see the 24 elders fell down and bowed before him. Is this necessarily talking about those who are older? People wonder who the 24 elders are. Are they men? Well, we know that no one has ascended to heaven apart from Yeshua. The only ones, in fact, who are before Elohim and who are bowing down and worshipping him, they are angels. So logic would dictate that these are angels. We're not told that specifically, but they can't be human people. Again, I would say that they're not the old angels, that they are the angels with positions. James 5:14 says, "Is anyone among you sick? Let him call for the elders of the assembly." Again, not just those who are old. Let him call for those who are the elders, the ones who are known, the ones with wisdom within the assembly. 1 Peter 5:1-3 says, "Therefore, as a fellow elder and a witness of the sufferings of Messiah, and also a sharer of the esteem that is to be revealed, I appeal to the elders among you. Shepherd the flock of Elohim, which is among you, serving as overseers, not by compulsion, but voluntarily, not out of greed for filthy gain, but eagerly, neither as being masters over those entrusted to you, but being examples to the flock." So these are the people who are the elders in the congregation. It's not the old people, it's the people who are wise of heart. It's those who are known in the congregation, those who can teach the word, those who have served as servants perhaps. And we see that they are not as being masters over them, and we see that word there, kuriuo, okay, but being examples. Again, the people that you should be choosing are those who are examples to the rest of faith and of obedience. They are those who will shepherd the others rather than rule over them. Acts 21:17-18 says, "And when we had arrived in Jerusalem, the brothers received us gladly. And on the following day, Shaul went in with us to Yaakov, and all the elders came." Titus 1:5-14 speaks of appointing elders. You can't appoint somebody to be older than they are. "In every city as I commanded you." So, as I'm saying, you as the body of Messiah, in the groups that you meet, you should appoint elders too. It says, "If anyone is unreprovable, the husband of one wife, having believing children, not accused of loose behavior or unruly. For an overseer has to be unreprovable as a steward of Elohim, not self-pleasing, not wrath, not given to wine, no brawler, and not greedy for filthy gain, but kind to strangers, a lover of what is good, sensible, righteous, set apart, self-controlled, clinging to the trustworthy word according to the teaching, in order to be able both to encourage by sound teaching and to reprove those who oppose it," which is a facet of being an elder or an overseer, which is, it's not a nice thing to have to do, to reprove people when they are not walking in the word. But we see that they must be people who command respect because of their own walk. They're not to be hypocrites. They are to be people who are firmly established in the word. "For there are many unruly men, senseless talkers and deceivers, especially those of the circumcision, whose mouths have to be stopped, who upset entire households, teaching what they should not for the sake of filthy gain. One of them, a prophet of their own, said, Cretans are always liars, evil beasts, lazy gluttons. This witness is true. Therefore rebuke them sharply in order for them to be sound in the belief, not paying attention to Jewish fables and commands of men who turn from the truth. So we see that the teaching which such people are to follow are not, the book of Adam and Eve, or maybe the book of Enoch, or Joshua, or Jubilees, or whatever other things. They are to follow not the commands of men, not to be people who are like, oh, the rabbis, they know what they're talking about. They've got the true wisdom, as someone once said to us. Instead, they are to be people who are rooted firmly in the word, who get their teaching from what is actually the word of Elohim. Acts 20:17-32 says, and from Miletus he sent to Ephesus and called for the elders of the assembly. And when they had come to him, he said to them, you know, from the first day that I came to Asia, how I was with you all the time, serving the master with all humility and many tears and trials which befell me by the plotting of the Jews, as I kept back no matter that was profitable, but proclaimed it to you and taught you publicly from house to house, witnessing to Jews and also to Greeks, repentance toward Elohim and belief in our Master Yeshua Messiah. And now see, I go bound in the Spirit to Jerusalem, not knowing what is going to meet me there, except that the set-apart Spirit witnesses in every city, saying that chains and pressures await me. But I do not count my life of any value to me, so that I might accomplish my mission with joy, and the service which I received from the Master Yeshua to bear witness to the good news of the favor of Elohim. And now see, I know that you all, among whom I went about proclaiming the reign of Elohim, shall see my face no more. Therefore I witness to you this day that I am clear from the blood of all. For I kept back from declaring to you the counsel, to you all the counsel of Elohim. Therefore take heed to yourselves and to all the flock, among which the set-apart Spirit has made you overseers, to shepherd the assembly of Elohim, which he has purchased with his own blood. So Paul here gives us a fantastic example of what it is to be a servant. He's not going about for the sake of his own gain. He's going about for the sake of the kingdom of Elohim. And he says, now I'm going up to Jerusalem. I don't know what awaits me apart from chains and pressures. But does he refrain from going? Does he hold himself back? Of course not. For I know this, that after my departure, savage wolves shall come in among you, not sparing the flock. Also from among yourselves men shall arise, speaking distorted teachings to draw away disciples after themselves. Therefore watch, remembering that for 3 years, night and day, I did not cease to warn each one with tears. And now, brothers, I commit you to Elohim and to the word of his favor, which is able to build you up and give you an inheritance among all those having been set apart. So Paul says to the elders, he says, look, you should expect this, that people will come in with wrong doctrine, and they're even going to draw others away as disciples after themselves. So this should not be a shock. But we see in verse 28, therefore take heed to yourselves and to all the flock, among which the set-apart Spirit has made you overseers, to shepherd the assembly of Elohim. Okay, so he's addressing the overseers here. He says that Elohim has appointed them by the Ruach to do these things, because he knows After his departure shall come savage wolves, people who are wolves in sheep's clothing, who speak distorted teachings to draw away disciples after themselves. So don't be discouraged if you see things like this among your fellowship. There are always going to be those who want to do things their own way, and they may well go off and do their own thing, and that's fine, okay? You should stick to the word, and you should have as your overseer somebody who is able to reprove such people, able to instruct them properly, and able to guard the rest of the flock, to shepherd the rest of the flock from such people. 2 Timothy 2, 1-18 says, "You then, my son, be strong in the favor that is in Messiah Yeshua. And what you have heard from me among many witnesses, entrust these to trustworthy men who shall be competent to teach others as well." So we have this appointment of elders advised to Timothy here. Suffer hardship with us as a good soldier of Yeshua Messiah. No one serving as a soldier gets involved in the affairs of this life in order to please only him who enlisted him as a soldier. If anyone competes in a game, he is not crowned unless he competes according to the rules. The hard-working farmer ought to be first to receive his share of the crops. Think over what I say, for the Master shall give you understanding into all this. Remember that Yeshua Messiah of the seed of David was raised from the dead according to my good news or gospel, for which I suffer hardship as a criminal unto chains, but the word of Elohim is not chained. So I endure through it all for the sake of the chosen, so that they too obtain deliverance which is in Messiah Yeshua with an everlasting esteem. Trustworthy is the word, for if we died with him, we shall also live with him. If we endure, we shall also reign with him. If we deny him, he also shall deny us. If we are not trustworthy, he remains trustworthy. It is impossible for him to deny himself. Remind them of this, earnestly witnessing before the Master not to wage verbal battles which is useless to the overthrowing of the hearers. Do your utmost to present yourself approved to Elohim, a worker who does not need to be ashamed, rightly handling the word of truth. But keep away from profane, empty babblings, for they go on to more wickedness, and their word shall eat its way like gangrene. Hymenaeus and Philetus are of this sort, who have missed the goal concerning the truth, saying that the resurrection has already taken place, and overthrow the belief of some. So here Timothy is warned that there are people amongst his congregation, apparently, who are like this, Hymenaeus and Philetus, that go after profane, empty babblings, things which are of no value. As I looked at last time I did the Torah portion in via Kahal and Pekude. 2 Timothy 3:13-17 says, "But evil men and impostors shall go on to the worse, leading astray and being led astray. But you stay in what you have learned and trusted, having known from whom you have learned, and that from a babe you have known the set-apart scriptures, which are able to make you wise for deliverance or salvation through belief in Messiah Yeshua. All scripture is breathed by Elohim and profitable for teaching, for reproof, for setting straight, for instruction in righteousness, that the man of Elohim might be fitted, equipped for every good work." So again, warnings here of evil men and impostors who will lead astray who themselves are led astray. And Timothy is advised here, use the word of Elohim to instruct people in righteousness, to teach, to reprove people for setting them straight. Timothy is an excellent example that we can see the advice given to of an overseer. And he himself gave some as apostles, some as prophets, and some as evangelists, and some as shepherds and teachers, for the perfecting of the set apart ones, to the work of service, to a building up of the body of Messiah, until we all come to the unity of the belief and of the knowledge of the Son of Elohim, to a perfect man, to the measure of the structure of the completeness of Messiah, so that we should no longer be children, tossed and borne about by every wind of teaching, by the trickery of men and cleverness unto the craftiness of leading astray, but maintaining truth in love, and we grow up in all respects into him who is the head, Messiah, from whom the entire body, joined and knit together by what every joint supplies, according to the working by which each part does its share, causes the growth of the body for the building up of itself in love. And that is the ultimate goal, the growth of the body. As I say, it's not about people being in positions of leadership and having earthly positions. You know, you might think of the more traditional church with people with whatever positions in the church, people who go around with funny hats on. It's not about any of that. It's not about this life here on earth, beyond teaching and having his body grow as it's meant to grow. That's the only purpose in having a fellowship or having an assembly. So if you're part of a fellowship, maybe you've got somebody to appoint as an elder, as an overseer. This might bring about divisions within your fellowship, but that really is going to show the hearts of the people who are there. If you consider this to be your fellowship, that's great. Charlie and I are happy to serve you in any way that we can. If you have questions about the word of Elohim, you can always get in touch. That is our job. We're happy to serve the body. But I hope that you have a new way of looking at how these things are to be. It's not about people having positions. You know, you might look at the church, you might see that there are people who have all sorts of different titles within the church. All of that is garbage. Okay, you might have some of those people who are genuinely interested in teaching and spreading the word of Elohim. And that's good for those people. But I see often, and it kind of sticks out to me, that people want a position. We've had people who want positions within what we do. You know, people who are more interested in the calling of meetings to discuss how the church, the assembly, is going to be run than they are the actual growth of the body. Hebrews 13:7-9 says, "Remember those leading you who spoke the word of Elohim to you. Consider the outcome of their way of life and imitate their belief," which tells us that they should have belief and they should be walking in it and it should have a good outcome. Yeshua Messiah is the same yesterday, today, and forever. Do not be borne about by various and strange teachings, for it is good for the heart to be established by favor, not with foods which have not profited those who have been occupied by them. And you'll see this. You'll see people who are occupied by, as it puts it here, foods which do not profit them. But as a body, we should be we should be warning people away from all of that sort of stuff. That's why we have pastors and teachers in the body, so that people aren't blown about by every wind of doctrine and, oh, if you heard this and this, whatever doctrine that is of no profit to that person and, is of fascination to them, but ultimately will not be for the growth of the body of Messiah. And we get an insight into how things should be in reading passages like it's about the growth of the body and about what every joint brings to the body. We get an insight from that we are to be a body. It should be something communal where each part is of benefit to the other parts. That's how we are supposed to be. And maybe you're isolated, maybe you are on your own. That's not your fault, and that's not to say that is a bad thing, that you're doing something wrong in that case. If that's where Elohim has you at the moment, that's where he has you. But it is important to recognize that you have a job in the body as a whole. You have a job in the corporate temple of the Ruach, and Elohim has put you there for a purpose, and that it is good to be in fellowship with other people so that you can serve them. I hope that you've been able to maybe reverse your look at how things like this work, at what exactly the job of the body of Messiah is when it's on the earth, and how those who are in leadership should be. Maybe there are people watching this who are in leadership, and you think, well, maybe this is not how I have been looking over the body. Maybe my goal hasn't been to serve others. And, you've got the opportunity to make repentance and to make things as Elohim would have them on the earth. And maybe you're just a part of the body. You are under an overseer. And that is good. You've got your own role within the body. You are also responsible, as much as the person who is an overseer is, for the growth of the body. Every joint of the body allows the body to grow in the way that it is supposed to. So trust in Elohim. Don't go after positions just for the sake of the position. If you are someone who serves in the body of Elohim in whatever capacity, that's good. It's not about anything else other than serving other people and facilitating the growth of the body. Don't get lost in the kind of the dogmas and the traditions of men. Remember what you are put here and put within the body to achieve. Whatever you're doing is good. Okay, and if you're in a fellowship and you find all sorts of division and all sorts of doctrines and people pulling one way and the other, assign an overseer and make sure that they're one who will serve the body correctly. Maybe look to who's the person who always brings the food for the fellowship, who's the person who is always thinking about matters of administration, things that other people don't want to think about. They're the people who are serving the body. Don't look to people who are puffed up in, arrogant in their own knowledge of the word of Elohim. Those people who are causing division within the fellowship. 2 Peter 4:1-4 says, "In the sight of Elohim and Master Yeshua Messiah, who shall judge the living and the dead at his appearing in his kingdom, I earnestly charge you. Proclaim the word, be urgent in season, out of season, reprove, warn, appeal with all patience and teaching. For there shall be a time when they shall not bear sound teaching, but according to their own desires they shall heap up for themselves teachers, tickling the ear, teaching things that they want to learn rather than about things that maybe they need to be corrected in. And they shall indeed turn their ears away from the truth and be turned aside to myths. So again, Timothy is given great advice here by Paul as an overseer. So if you're an overseer of a fellowship, this is what you are called to do: to warn, reprove, appeal with all patience and teaching. If people have got wrong ideas, not to be getting frustrated and shouting them down, but being patient to teach sound doctrine to them. Have a knowledge of the word and be able to instruct people out of it as to what is good. Numbers 14 verse 4, I mentioned this verse before. They said to each other, "Let us appoint a leader and turn back to Mithraim." So when I'm talking about appointing a leader, okay, you've seen what is necessary for someone to be appointed as a leader of his people, what the characteristics are. Don't get caught away in the whole ear-tickly, let's gather to ourselves teachers and leaders who are going to teach us things that we like, who are going to teach us things that tickle the ear. You want people who are capable of reproving you, of warning you about what the word of Elohim says, because that's the only thing which is going to be of profit to you. Be one of those wise people who wants rebuke. Don't be somebody who just wants teachers to tell you little bits of trivia and whatever else, things that are of no profit whatsoever. So when you're appointing a leader, beware of this tendency. Deuteronomy 17:8-12 says, "When any matter arises which is too hard for you to judge, between blood and blood, between play and play, or between stroke and stroke, matters of strife within your gates, then you shall rise and go to the place which Yehovah your Elohim chooses, and shall come to the priests, the Levites, and to the judge who is in those days, and shall inquire, and they shall declare to you the word of Mishpat. And you shall do according to the word which they declare to you, from that place which Yehovah chooses. And you shall guard to do according to all they instruct you. Do according to the Torah which they teach you, according to the Mishpat which they say to you. You do not turn to the right or to the left from the word which they declare to you. And the man who acts arrogantly so as not to listen to the priest who stands to serve before Yehovah your Elohim, or to the judge, that man shall die. So you shall purge the evil from Israel." So what we can learn from that is that we should be removing such people from our midst, people who will not listen to authority, who want to go after their own imaginations. So when somebody is in authority in your fellowship, you must listen to them when they decide a matter, because Yehovah sees that as his will. And as we saw before, you are grumbling against, or you are rebelling not only against that person, but also against Yehovah and against how he has things. As I mentioned before, there is a way to approach somebody whom you think has something wrong, but that is not in rebellion and in disobedience. There's a way to do it. Again, look for Torah portion Shoftim with the picture of Absalom as the thumbnail if you want instruction in that. So in summary, the overseers of fellowships declare the word and teach the gospel. They teach sound doctrine, give instruction in righteousness, discern false doctrine, and shield from various winds of doctrine, must be able to patiently instruct and teach in these matters, warn people of potential dangers with the word, i.e. warn them of the dangers with the word, not warn them of dangers in the word, reprove those in sin, and if necessary, remove them, hear witnesses, and judge matters of division or sin between brethren. Finally, they must serve the body in these matters rather than rule over it. What you want is a shepherd who is going to look after the sheep, to do what is required of them to look after the sheep. All the things that I had on the previous slide. People who will lead the sheep, people who will look after the sheep, who will do what is necessary for the benefit of the sheep, people who will protect the sheep when savage wolves or whatever other idiom you want to use come into the congregation and seek to disrupt and ultimately cause the death of people whom they lead astray. Okay, call no man shepherd. Okay, that's not who you want to be looking for your instruction. Rather, you want a shepherd who will look after the sheep, who will teach them that which comes from the good shepherd and not that which comes from them themselves. That'll be the end of the third part now. That was supposed to be the second part, but I'll end there because the first part was so long. Shall we pray? Father, I thank you that you have given us the members of the body according to your will. I thank you that we can serve you as the body of Messiah, that we would be your priests and your representatives here on the earth. I thank you that you give people gifts through your Spirit so that your will be fulfilled and that your kingdom will come on earth as it is in heaven. Thank you, Father. Amen.